on this Saturday, February 15th. I'm Nina Naufal, and these are today's headlines. It's official. Lebanon announces the formation of its 24-member unity government after 11 months of political deadlock. On the 9th anniversary of the assassination of former Premier Rafiq Hariri, his son urges the implementation of the Babda Declaration. And Syria's warring sides meet in Geneva in a last effort to save deadlocked peace talks, fearing they could collapse. Prime Minister Tamam Salam has just formed a 24-member unity government, ending months of political deadlock in the country. The government brings together Lebanon's rival March 14 and March 8 coalitions, as well as the so-called centrist figures loyal to the president, Prime Minister, and Progressive Socialist Party MP Walid Jumblat. Hezbollah has 2 ministers in the government. Salam named Samir Muqbil as Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister. Nuhad Mashnou was named Interior Minister, Gibran Basil Foreign Minister, and Ali Hassan Khalil the Finance Minister. Retired Police Chief Ashraf Rifi, seen as a controversial figure by the March 8 coalition, was appointed Justice Minister, and the energy portfolio was handed to Tashnag MP Arthur Nazarian. The government lineup includes only one female minister, Judge Alice Shabtini, for the Ministry of the Displaced. So delving a little deeper, well, Prime Minister Tamam Salam says he is not aware, when he was appointed as Premier Designate back in April of 2013, that his task would only last nearly 11 months. The process of forming a new government was met with local and regional obstacles, most notably the conflict in Syria and various conditions set by both rival March 8 and 14 camps. The son of the late Saab Salam, who himself was a prime minister on 7 different occasions, Tamam Salam was tasked with the difficult mission of coming up with a cabinet that would meet the interest and expectations of both rival political factions. He juggled numerous possible formations, such as the 30-minister cabinet, a neutral or technocrat one. Last-minute contacts between President Michel Sulaiman Salam and Speaker Nabih Berri, as well as Progressive Socialist Party Chief MP Walid Jumblat's envoy, Minister Wael Abu Faoud, yielded a settlement that saw the appointment of future MP Nuhad Mashnou to the post. And former Prime Minister Saad Hariri stresses his rejection of any president who might be in the service of any foreign tutelage, and urged Speaker Nabih Berri to convince Hezbollah to withdraw its fighters from Syria and start implementing the Babda Declaration. He emphasized that the future will either be at the image of Rafiq Hariri or will cease to be. He added either it will be up to the level of his dreams, path, struggle, or national history, or not. He said in the sense that the time of justice is the time of moderation, and the people of justice are the people of this country. He said, quote, "We are the people of moderation who stood and are standing against all forms of extremism." He stressed that fighting terrorism requires a quick decision from Hezbollah to withdraw from Syria, to abandon the illusion of preemptive war, and recognize that the Lebanese state is responsible for the safety of its borders and its citizens. Syria's warring sides are meeting in Geneva in a last-ditch effort to save deadlocked peace talks amid fears that they could altogether collapse. UN mediator Lakhdar Brahimi will hold a final meeting with both sides as the second round of the UN-brokered peace talks wraps up, with the rivals further apart than ever. They appear to only agree on one thing, that the negotiations are going nowhere. Syria's Deputy Foreign Minister Faisal Muqdad says he regrets that this round did not make any progress, as opposition spokesman Lu'ay Safi agrees on the impasse. The ongoing evacuation of civilians from besieged city of Homs is the only tangible result so far of the Geneva II talks, and has been hailed as a relative success. And as Syrian peace talks in Geneva appear to flounder, U.S. President Barack Obama vows to step up pressure on the regime of President Bashar al-Assad. His remarks come as he hosted Jordan's King Abdullah II in California to address issues including the flood of Syrian refugees into Jordan. Obama said both he and the Jordanian king recognize that they have to solve the underlying problem of Bashar al-Assad's regime, and emphasized the need of a political transition in the region. At the meeting, Obama pledged $1 billion in loan guarantees to Jordan, as well as a renewal of a 5-year memorandum of understanding. According to White House officials, the funds are aimed in part at helping Jordan with the flood of Syrian refugees and its loss of natural gas from Egypt. King Abdullah said the Syrian crisis and the rise of extremism are his country's primary concerns. Syria's government and opposition still do not honor basic tenets of international humanitarian law despite the evacuation of besieged Syrians from the old city of Homs, according to the head of the International Committee of the Red Cross. ICRC President Peter Maurer said the evacuation did not herald any wider improvement in humanitarian access in Syria, where the UN says it cannot access up to 3 million people in need. The deal to get civilians out of the old city was initially seen as an icebreaker that would kickstart peace talks in Geneva, but their second six-day round concluded on Saturday, still deadlocked on all other issues beside the evacuation. Now, Maurer said there were many other besieged areas beside Homs, with over 1 million people living in extremely difficult conditions. And coming up, 3 couples wed on Valentine's Day on top of the Empire State Building. Stay tuned for this and more after the break. Welcome back. A Bahraini policeman has died of wounds he sustained in a bomb blast during protests marking the anniversary of the 2011 Arab Spring-inspired uprising, according to the Bahraini Interior Ministry. The terrorist explosion, as it was labeled, struck in the Shia village of Daid outside the capital Manama late on Friday and wounded 2 on-duty policemen assigned to secure the road, including the one who died a little bit later. It was the second reported blast during the protests marking the 3rd anniversary of the uprising among the Gulf states' Shia majority for a constitutional monarchy in the Sunni-ruled kingdom. Earlier, the ministry reported another explosion in the similarly named village of Daih, which caused minor damage to a bus transporting police personnel. And this is according to pictures posted on Twitter. 18 Iraqi soldiers and police have been killed in targeted attacks and clashes, officials and doctors say, as the country struggles to contain its worst violence in years. Meanwhile, militants held part of the northern town of Sulayman Bek after security forces withdrew despite reportedly making gains in a battle for control of the area a day before. Most of the casualties occurred overnight. In the city of Tikrit, north of the capital, gunmen lured a police colonel out of his house, shot him dead, and fled the area. And militants shot dead 4 soldiers and wounded 3 who were driving in a civilian vehicle on the main highway. In Sulaymanbek, a police captain was stopped by militants and shot dead on his way to pick up relatives in the town and evacuate them to safety. Now, foreign leaders have urged the Shia-led government to do more to reach out to the disaffected Sunni Arab minority to undercut support for militants. In world news, France has announced plans to increase its 1,600-strong military deployment in the Central African Republic by sending an additional 400 soldiers as political and sectarian unrest continues to tear apart the African nation. The decision to boost French military presence in the former colony to 2,000 soldiers comes as thousands of Muslims who tried to flee the sectarian violence in the capital of the former French colony were turned back by peacekeepers. Tens of thousands of Muslims have fled for their lives in the Central African Republic as Christian militiamen have stepped up their attacks in recent weeks. French forces are working alongside nearly 6,000 African peacekeepers. President François Hollande's office also urged other countries to show increased solidarity and called on the United Nations Security Council to accelerate the deployment of peacekeeping troops in the country. And the United States and China promised to cooperate more closely in combating climate change following a visit to Beijing by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry. Kerry toured a plant in Beijing owned by U.S.-based engine manufacturer Cummins Fulton to observe new technologies that produce more efficient engines.
How do we improve the quality of the air that we breathe and at the same time reduce the greenhouse gas emissions which contribute to climate change? President Xi and President Obama have joined in agreeing that we both have a special role to play in reducing those emissions. I'm very pleased to also announce today that the leaders of China have agreed to join us in a mutual effort. China and the United States will put an extra effort into exchanging information and discussing policies that will help both of us to be able to develop and lead on the standards that need to be announced yet next year for the global climate change agreement. This is a unique cooperative effort between China and the United States, and we have hopes that it will help to set an example for global leadership and global seriousness on the issue of next year's climate change negotiation.
3 couples celebrated Valentine's Day by getting married at New York's Empire State Building. Brendan Goldenblatt and Maria Vasquez, who met at a party 8 years ago, were among those who exchanged their vows. Both are New Yorkers and felt the Empire State Building was the perfect place for a wedding. Maria Vasquez, now Goldenblatt, says the wedding was just unforgettable. She added that Valentine's Day will never be the same, and the Empire State Building will never be the same as it is, because it has changed her life forever. Couples were chosen after submitting their personal love stories on Facebook. On that note, I'll end our bulletin for today and remind you of our headlines. It's official. Lebanon announces the formation of its 24-member unity government after 11 months of political deadlock. On the 9th anniversary of the assassination of former Premier Rafiq Hariri, his son urges the implementation of the Babda Declaration. And Syria's warring sides meet in Geneva in a last effort to save deadlocked peace talks, fearing they could collapse altogether. Those are your Saturday headlines live on Future Television in Beirut. I'm Nima Naufal, wishing you a good week.
داعش وحزب الله